This is about nuclear weapons that probably don't even fucking exist.
Well, let's talk about that. Why, what was the first thing we were told on why we were going into Iran?
Nuclear weapons.
Nuclear weapons. Great. Trump's own Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, testified in front of Congress there is no evidence that Iran is building any sort of nuclear weapon. Our own intelligence says that. The director of the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Association, no, I forgot what the last A is, came out and said there is absolutely no evidence that Iran possesses or is in the process of possessing a nuclear weapon. Don't forget that Obama in 1915 signed the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, which we call the Iran nuclear deal. That required that in order for us not to put sanctions on Iran, that they would agree that they would not refine any sort of plutonium into weapons grade, and they would not seek a nuclear bomb, right? And they would allow international inspectors to come in and inspect anywhere in Iran to make sure that this was true. That was signed in 2015. In 2018, Trump said, I want to put sanctions on Iran. Well, you can't because we have an agreement that says we can't. Well, then I'm going to pull us out of the agreement. So in 2018, Trump pulled us out of the agreement that allowed us to send inspectors in. And now we're saying, well, they're building nuclear weapons. They have to agree to inspections. We had an agreement for inspections.
Did they allow our inspectors to get in?
They did.
They honored the agreement.
They allowed the International Atomic Energy Agency, that's what it is, to send inspectors in and look. We already had that. We took it away, and then we say, we think they're building nuclear weapons. But our own intelligence service says they're not. Yeah, well, we think they are, so we're going to go in.
So was that done on purpose to manufacture a narrative?
It would appear that way. I couldn't say if it was or not. I don't have insight to that, but it certainly gives the impression of that.
Sheesh.
And again, all of this, look up Tulsi Gabbard, look what she testified in Congress, look up the IAEA and see what the commissioner said. All of this is public record.
I remember this is right before we bombed them in June, correct? When Tulsi said this.
Tulsi said that, yeah, right beforehand.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, this is not 20 years ago or 10 years ago. This is recently when we were looking. This is like
This is right before
I
June.
think this was actually in March.
I mean, not one of our 18 intelligence agencies reported that. Only Mossad.
Yeah. So you got to look at that and say, so let's just, a normal intelligent person would look and say, if we weren't there because they had nuclear weapons, which it appears they didn't, then why are we there? Now, oil? You could argue it, but how much oil do we get from Iran? Almost none. That is not an American issue. Oil for us isn't an issue. So what are the four things that the U.S. said that we need to do? Why are we there? What are our goals? And I'll talk about this a little bit later when we talk about the 1913, 1939 parallels. What are our goals? Our goals are to completely destroy their missile program. Okay. Laudable goal. Do those missiles, do they threaten the U.S.? No, they have no missiles. They have no intercontinental ballistic missiles. Who do they threaten? They threaten Israel. We want to, quote, annihilate their entire Navy. Do they have a blue water Navy that could come over to the United States and attack us? No. Who can they attack? Israel, and they can use that to stop the flow of oil through the Straits of Hormuz, right? We want to sever their proxy threads, right? Because they support other groups through proxy, right? And again, we can talk about that people don't understand that most of those proxy groups are there because of Israel as well. And we'll talk about that because you can't just take these independently and say, well, look what they're doing. Okay, great. Why are they doing that? How did they get formed? What is their goal, right? And you've got to understand all of that before you understand the reaction to it. And then the final one is ensure that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon. Okay. Interesting goals. The first three are actually measurable. Can we measure whether or not we destroy their missiles, annihilate their navy, and cut off their proxy threads? We can measure those. And this is one of the reasons why I go back to the 1913 thing. All of this will tie together. In 1913, they had no definable goals. We don't have a definable goal. Those three are not bad. We can put a check in the block and say, yes, we've accomplished that. We can go home now. Ensure that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon. When is that done? That's never done. We just signed up for a forever war here. If that's one of our goals, that means we will be there forever. We will never leave because the second we do, they could form a bomb. So if that's one of our goals, we have just announced that we will never leave the area. I don't think the American public wants to sign up for a forever war in Iran.
I don't know anybody that does, other than Lindsey Graham and his cronies up there in the Trump administration.
The most recent Reuters poll, or Gallup poll, says 56% of Americans absolutely do not want us at war. So, yeah, I don't think this is what people signed up for.